أي أسئلة ننتقل إلى الجلسة الثانية وبعدين بنكفي نرجع أسئلة لكل الجلسات الصغرى. في حال أحد عنده سؤال أو أي مداخلة شادية أو أخت شادية.
Sheikh Ismail from the Pension Fund of Oman Petroleum Development Oman. I'm very interested in the Monte Carlo simulation. It seems to be a very good tool in allocating the assets. But sometimes it turns to be very biased when you introduce alternative investments where you get very high returns and become dominant, and it would, give you an allocation where would not be or would not be right for the portfolio, considering the short history of alternative investments. How to go about this problem?
That's actually a $1 million question. It's very difficult. You're right. Monte Carlo sensitivity tests have a number of flaws in them. There's still research being done on it, and I don't think the research is conclusive at this point. There are some other models that use stochastic capital stimulations that seem to be promising, but they still have problems at the extremes. And the industry as a whole, I don't believe, has an adequate answer to that yet. So we need to work on it together.
I have a question to both gentlemen. I would like to hear the comments on that. With the recent push and recent requirement on more transparency in accounting in big corporations, especially in the United States, we have seen reports that some of the big companies, GM, for example, one of them, I think, I remember there are 4 were mentioned in the report. Some of the big companies, they were assuming a rate of return on their assets. And their actuarial studies that are a little bit unreasonable. And as a result of this assumption, this rate of return, they were actually showing in their books they have surplus in the funds of their pension scheme for their employees with huge amounts. And they were using these surpluses, which in actual fact does not exist. It is book entry because they were assuming high interest rate, and they were using these surpluses to boost up their income and to cover some of their accounting shortfalls. This is, of course, something that is expanding and something that's being looked at, and many of the, I think, regulatory authorities in the United States are worried that this might be widespread, that these companies use these accounts to play with the interest rate and their actual evaluation, and the return on their actual evaluation to boost up their incomes and on the accounts of their employees. And it was mentioned that actually some of these funds are broke almost, I would like to hear both gentlemen comment on this issue, this recent issue. Thank you.
I think the problem is real. I think you explained it fairly accurately in terms of what's happening in the United States. The right interest rate to use in evaluating the liability is very difficult to choose. And with the changes in the interest rates that have occurred, at least in the American economy over the last few years, it's been difficult to know which is the right rate to use. within a range has always been considered acceptable. Have a value somewhere chosen in a range that all participants are agreeing on. I think what's really happening right now is that the realization that the underlying portfolio of assets needs to be fully integrated in the decision of the interest rates is coming through. And in addition, the regulatory authorities are requiring that the actuaries work not with the senior management, but with the audit committee of the companies. And that the audit committee needs to be filled with outside people, outside directors who can ask telling questions. We have recently, for the actuarial profession in the United States, filed papers with the Securities and Exchange Commission suggesting that the audit committee ought to be required to have an actuarial consultant come with them to confirm the validity of the assumptions being made on their assets and in terms of how their liabilities are going forward. I think that you'll start seeing the awareness occurring and that there'll be some significant changes made in a fairly short time period, mostly through the audit committees of the various firms.
May I just, I don't know if I can impose on David, would you like to add something on this particular point since you are from the supervision side on the pension funds?
Yeah,